Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Podcast Boys. I am one of your hosts, Connor Nielsen, and joining me is the Comics Kid 2099. How are you doing, Comics Kid?
I'm doing very well, and how are you, Connor?
Here in the Dragon Realm, I guess it's all right. Skies are certainly clearer than they were when Ethan was left here all by himself with nothing to do and no way to get back. But today we are talking about the 2007 film Dragon Wars. In the United States, this was released as D-War: Dragon Wars. This is ostensibly a Twin Peaks podcast. It's been a long, long time since we've talked about Twin Peaks, but now we just talk about Twin Peaks adjacent projects, basically writers, directors, mostly actors, anything else that worked on the television show Twin Peaks, anything that they have worked on or appeared in is fair game for us to talk about. This film is directed by Hyung Rae Shim, and it featured the actors Chris Mulkey, who played Hank on the original series of Twin Peaks, as well as Robert Forster, who was in Twin Peaks: The Return, 10 years after this movie premiered. So Comics Kid, why don't you tell us a little bit about the plot of D-War: Dragon Wars?
So we can get much more deep into the plot as we go further, but the basic gist is there's a girl who's a reincarnation of someone from Korea from 500 years ago, and her spirit needs to be bonded to a dragon, and if it's bonded to a good dragon, that's good, and if it's bonded to a bad dragon, that's bad. I know it sounds like I'm like really just half-heartedly doing it, but that's the best I've got with this movie. There's bad guys trying to capture her. It's a whole thing. This is probably the most bazonkers movie I have ever watched in my life. I've seen it twice now, and I took more notes for this podcast, Connor, than I did when we talked about Sex in the City. I was like every minute I would have to pause to write down something else, and it's crazy. But also somehow I know other people have seen this movie, but I feel like I haven't heard enough people talk about just how insane the movie is. On the one hand, it feels like it should have been a sci-fi, I don't know if the Sci-Fi Channel is still a thing, but they used to have original movies, and it feels like it should have been a sci-fi original made for TV thing. But it also has quite a few big actors that I have heard of, and so it's above a really awful made for TV joint, but it's also just really doesn't feel like it should have been a global theatrical experience. And I mentioned last time we talked that this is the first time I have deliberately chosen something that I knew was bad. I still enjoy this movie, but this is the first time I've deliberately done that. But Connor, what did you think of this movie?
I hate you.
Oh,
Nah,
no.
I'm kidding. You said that was what you didn't want to hear.
Yeah.
So that's what I planned. No, honestly, last night, it was Friday night, got off my shift. I work a swing shift, and my coworkers and I all hit the bar, got some drinks, and then afterwards I went to my apartment and turned on Dragon Wars. Now let me tell you, watching this, maybe a little tipsy, was the correct choice. I am so glad you took notes on this, because this was an assault on the senses, but primarily the brain. I was like, what is happening? The first 20 minutes of this movie is an experience, let me tell you that. We got flashbacks within flashbacks within flashbacks. Oh my God, what's even happening? And it should be said, this is a South Korean film. But because of that, there's a clear language barrier in key scenes. This is a weird line that no one else would probably notice. But I was like, what? Is this movie having a stroke? And then it's I remembered it's Korean. This is probably just a language barrier thing where it's the blonde girl turns to the main Ashton Kutcher looking guy, and she's like, aren't you going to congratulate me? And he says, why? and she says, "It's my 20th birthday." You don't congratulate people for their birthdays.
Right.
Like, it's just weird stuff like that is just in all over this movie. But here's the thing that's making me freak out, dude. Like, this isn't an asylum movie. This isn't a sci-fi movie. This is like obviously the special effects and like the CGI, like this was made, I imagine, pre Transformers, but like there's a lot of CGI in this. There's a lot of action scenes. There's a lot of CGI inside of moving shots. Like, this was an expensive movie, I imagine, for its region and in its time, and probably like required more special effects than the average South Korean film in 2007. So what that means is they meant, like, this was the plan. They meant for it to be like this. And like Moogie, and like, oh my god, like I'm rambling at this point, but like it is like insane. Like, you're watching this and it's like, how many things in pop culture can we just rip off to guarantee a return? So you've got Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, I want to say Transformers, but I don't know what else was like before Transformers that like this and Transformers would kind of be just like applying to its own genre, because
Right.
like they're basically the same movie, but they came out the same year, so it's like they couldn't, like, this isn't a Transformers ripoff.
Right.
But like it is just blandly attractive man, blandly attractive woman just running away from special effects. So I guess like Roland Emmerich disaster movies, like, what is this? Like, how did this come into existence? I don't know. This was an experience. I can't wait to talk about this with you, though.
Yeah. Did you enjoy it, or was this more of a like an educational experience where you were just like kind of puzzled with it?
Well, I will say the first 20 minutes were legitimately entertaining in a bad movie way. The rest of it was this like wonderful sense of discovery, where it was like, oh, this is like an actual movie and not like an asylum movie. Because the first 20 minutes feel like an asylum movie.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, it's not that. Oh, like, yeah, it's like got like legitimate attempts at comic relief. It's not like asylum movies know that what they're making is bad on purpose, so they don't, like, the movie itself is comedic, so they don't put in comic relief. Like, the crummy CGI is the joke, and they know that that's the joke. Here you have, like, I imagine Kevin James watched this and went, I'm going to be a zookeeper. Because you have, like, a character who's a zookeeper.
From that
where,
movie.
like, where the character is basically, like, they couldn't get Kevin James, so they got some other, like, kind of fat white guy to be a zookeeper. And, like, there's an ongoing bit with him that's a comic relief bit. And I'm like, oh, so this CGI is, like effort, like they like they think this is impressive, like, you know what I mean, like, oh, like, so I had like the sense of discovery moving forward. It did get a little like kind of tiring and butt numbing during the big like Transformers fight in LA. However, once we get to the Dragon Realm, it got beautiful. So anyways, that's kind of what the emotional roller coaster of watching this movie was.
Okay, yeah. The reason I was laughing is because many years ago, your favorite channel and mine, Red Letter Media, they did a video where they were talking about this fake movie that looked really impressive, where they were like, they even got Kevin James to be in this fake trailer, and they were talking about the gorilla, the talking gorilla that sees the TGI Fridays and says, "Shut up." And so I've never seen that movie, but when you mentioned that, I just, like, my mind was destroyed for a minute. Sorry. So this movie starts with some vague woman's voice saying, some say, I don't remember what she says, some say the time of dragons is over, but the time of dragons has just begun. And already seconds into the movie, I'm pausing it like, what? Like, I'm like, what does that mean? Because spoilers, but this movie ends with two dragons fighting each other. One of them dies, and the other one goes to live in outer space. So, like, what does that mean? The time for dragons has just begun? Because I think the time for dragons has ended by the end of this movie.
Well, that's what's amazing is, like, there's no dragons. Like, yeah, they're in a war to become a dragon. So
yeah, so already I was like, oh man, like And I should point out, I told you the last time we spoke, I said that I was like Rich Evans cackling while watching that movie. And then this time, I didn't laugh at the same things, but I laughed at different things that made me laugh like hysterically. Like I was like really afraid that someone would come and say, "Hey, are you okay?" Like, because I was like just nearly losing my mind laughing at some of the stupid stuff in this movie. And I was like really confused. Like, I wonder if this is meant to be funny or if this is a legitimate attempt at something serious and they just failed. Because some of it, like the guy who saw the dragon eating the elephant, like that, it's like, okay, yeah, that's a attempted comedic relief. But then some of it I was like, oh, I don't know if they knew that this was something that would be sending me into fits like almost 2 decades later. So yeah, and I marked those moments in my notes. But and so then we get some it's like Lord of the, like you said, like at the beginning of the first Lord of the Rings movie where Galadriel is like doing a big like info dump explaining like, here's Sauron, here's the big war, here's Isildur, like all that stuff. You get a little bit of that, but then this movie also chooses to have Robert Forster give a flashback to a character in the movie itself. And I always feel like if you're going to do the Galadriel voiceover explaining stuff that happened centuries ago, then don't have characters in the narrative itself doing exposition dumps. Or if you're going to have the exposition dumps in the movie, don't do like a title crawl or a voiceover at the beginning. I don't know if that was like a deal breaker for you, but I feel like you do one or the other, right?
Okay, I cannot understand how you can say, I'm not sure if you know this like deal breaker. No, the amount of exposition is insane. Let's try to parse this out, okay?
Yeah.
Because like the first 20 minutes is nothing but mythology exposition.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, we'll get back to it, but Chris Mulkey just knowing all of the exposition in his last scene was one of those like, okay, so is he gonna morph into Robert Forster now? Like, what's happening? And then it's like the only explanation is he says, "I've done my homework."
Yeah.
The whole time he's like, what's going on? We got to figure out what's going on. Then like 2 scenes later, he's like, I've done my homework. Mm-hmm. So anyways, so let's parse this out. So the dragons or the non-dragons are called the Imugi or Imugi, right?
Yeah.
By the way, I'm laughing already, right? Imugi, just really funny name, especially when you're drunk. So so there are Imugi, and every 500 years, a woman is born with a dragon tattoo. They say on her shoulder, but it's kind of like on her upper pectoral. And basically this is Harry Potter, right? Where it's like I have a birthmark that when danger is near, related to my birthmark, it gets, you know, damaged. Well, I guess it's not a Harry Potter birthmark. That's a scar when he was a little infant, but like same principle applies, right? Like this is like value store Harry Potter. So then it's like inside of your blood, there's this like, what do they call it? The Yin Yi Ju? Is that what they call it?
Yes.
And so what is that?
Yu Yi Ju?
Yeah, Yu Yi Ju. Like they kind of said it like it's one word, but in the subtitles it's like 3 separate words that all have a capitalized letter. So the lady has the Yu Yi Ju in her blood. I don't know what that is. It's some kind of mystical substance that when a good dragon, or sorry, when a good Imugi gets it, they'll turn into a dragon and save the universe. And if a bad Imugi gets it, then it's going to destroy the world because they'll turn into a dragon. That's basically what it is. So like you have this main girl who is a reincarnation of a last person who had a dragon tattoo, but she committed suicide and she was Korean. It was her 20th birthday. The dragons were like, all right. Oh my God. Okay. You got to help me out here. Cut me off when like I'm forgetting a detail, because the other thing is the Yu Yigu or Yu Yiju or whatever, like that only materializes in your blood the second you turn 20 years old, right? Like when you turn, like, so you have this birthmark from birth, but it's basically like a birthmark saying you're going you are going on your 20th birthday to have this mystical power in your blood. And dragons, you see, they'll wait 500 years, but they're very impatient when they hit that 500 years. Like, once you turn 20, time to pay up, babe. All right? So you get, like, oh my God. So Robert Forster explains in flashback how in Korea there was just a bunch of, like, crazy evil agents of the bad Imugi. Oh my, I can't keep talking. Take the baton.
Okay, yeah. So I have here, it says in the movie says every 500 years a woman is born. And after I watched this the first time, I went and listened to some clips from the RiffTrax guys on YouTube. And when they said every 500 years a woman is born, one of them said sometimes even more often than that. And so that, because their line delivery was a little weird there, but yeah. So I was questioning if all of this is like from Korean folk legends. Why is the reincarnation now a white woman? Why, like, and that was like a choice that the director made, like to cast like an American cast. But I was asking, like, if this was something that was happening in Korea in the past, why is it now happening in LA? And I don't think the movie ever explains that. But then also, I just thought it was really funny that the movie actually says that if the bad dragon gets the power, then it will destroy the world. And that's something that, like, I want to destroy the world is like a classic supervillain motivation that I really hate. Like, but whenever I think about it, I can't think of characters that often who actually want to destroy the world. But then this is a movie that just takes that and runs with it. And
the language they use is hilarious because they actually say good Imugi, bad Imugi.
Yeah. And I do have notes about all the jargon that this movie uses, and I'll try to get that in a minute. So you had mentioned flashbacks. So about 3 minutes into the movie, so we have the guy. I called him not Tom Welling because this guy was actually in the TV series Roswell in the late 90s, early 2000s. And that show had Michael Horse in it as a deputy or a sheriff. And so for a while, I contemplated choosing an episode of that show, but I'm not going to do it. But he was like the Clark Kent from Smallville of that show. Like hi, I've got a lot of stuff going on, and I'm like an underwear model, but like, like I guess you wouldn't get it. And like, he was doing like the same thing as like Clark Kent from Smallville. And so seeing him here, I was like, oh, it's that alien from Roswell. Spoilers for that show. But yeah, we start with him, like there's a meteor has crashed in LA. He goes, and Chris Mulkey is there with this other guy, and Jason Bering, I think is the actor's name. He crosses the police tape, and he's got like a little camcorder, and they're like, hey, go away. And then he's a reporter. He sees the thing that they're digging up, and see, it looks like a meteor crash, but then it also looks like it's like buried under the dirt. So I don't know what's going on there. But then he sees it, and it triggers a flashback, and we are like not even 3 minutes into the movie, and then we cut to when he was a little kid with his dad, and they went to this antique shop to try and sell some ancient looking dagger because they're low on money. And so we have, it's 16 minutes of flashback, but within that 16-minute time frame, there is another flashback within that, because Robert Forster is able to magically sense that this kid is the chosen one. And so he fakes a heart attack and sends the dad away. And then he spends 12 minutes explaining all the stuff that happened 500 years ago in Korea. And so you had mentioned when we talked about Gotti, you said, anyone out there who wants to make a movie someday, just be happy knowing it won't be as bad as Gotti. You had said something to that effect. And I feel like I should say, like, if you are a novice filmmaker, you should watch this movie so that you know or have a pretty good idea what not to do. Like, I have never made a movie, so maybe I'm talking out of my butt here, but I'm going to say if you're making a movie, don't have a 16-minute chunk of movie that's solid flashback, and then within that 12 minutes that's a flashback within a flashback. Don't do that. Like, that was what made Ghosts of Mars so unbearable for me, was like scenes within scenes where a character was saying, hey, I just did this thing, and then you do the little Wayne's World thing, and then it's like someone in that flashback would say, hey, this thing just happened. Like, it becomes very difficult to keep up with when you do that.
But then also when we're in like the flashback, like sometimes like characters will start having memories from when they were children. So it's like flashback within flashback within flashback.
Yes, you're right, because in the 500 years ago timeline, there's the girl with the dragon birthmark, and then there's the guy who's supposed to be her protector, and then he has like a little like 10-second flashback where she says, "I've been having some really good dreams lately," and then it cuts back to him talking to his master. And so like
Yeah.
oh wow. So another thing, this
Sorry,
kind of
just very very quickly before
yeah, go
we
ahead.
move on regarding that like because you were talking about how like there's a meteorite crash, Chris Mulkey and his partner, reporter man shows up with like a terrible camcorder, then all of a sudden it has like cinema grade, capabilities, and like all of a sudden it's able to get an angle that he's not at, and this amazing optical zoom, even though that camcorder would have a really crummy digital zoom. But anyways, so you have like all of that, and then it's like this whole like meteorite crash thing. Like you saying that, I didn't even know that's what it was. Like it kind of maybe looks like it would be that. Nobody says what it is. Nobody in the dialogue says that. This feels like the editing was like when sent to America, they're like, we have to re-edit the first act of your movie. Because like it seems obvious to me that like all of the stuff that's in like the past 500 years ago in Korea was just supposed to be the beginning of the movie. But then that also doesn't make like was the whole scene with Robert Forster explaining it to a kid a reshoot? But it couldn't have been but maybe it was. Oh my God. Okay, I'm sorry. The point is like you get like it feels like the way it's supposed to be is like not Ashton Kutcher Welling like sits in his like goes into his office, and then somebody says, "There's a meteorite crash. We need you to go over there and take a look." And then he says, "All right." And then he's like, getting closer, and he's like maybe asking questions like, "Oh, what is going on? Is this a meteorite crash? What do we got?" And then no comment. That's what Chris Mulkey will say. He'll say no comment. Like that's what it feels like it's supposed to be. The way it plays is it feels like they cannot get to a flashback soon enough. Like it's like it's like 2 minutes of him going to a site. The context, what is it? Is it a meteorite? Doesn't matter. Point is, he saw something that's triggering a memory, so he goes back to his office so that he can have a flashback. That's like, the editing is like this nightmare. Like, it's so weird.
Yes, and I have got some more notes on the editing later. But yeah, I'm glad that it didn't make sense to you too, because I was like, there were different things that kind of puzzled me. And so I'm glad I'm not just an idiot who just missed something abundantly obvious. Like, I'm glad that it's confusing to everybody, and that makes me feel a little better about my ability to like understand the movie. So yeah, he gets to this crash site, I think it is, and there's a Native American man yelling, and the police are like dragging him away. And
oh my God, I forgot about that. Oh wow. Okay, yeah.
At first he says, "This land is not yours to give." And I thought, well, that's weird. That doesn't have anything to do with dragons or the Force or anything like that. And he says, then he starts saying, "The beast is risen." And I'm like, oh, so he knows about the plot of the movie. But then I'm like, wait, how? Because this is a Korean thing, right? Like all this stuff that happened 500 years ago happened in Korea. But this is a Native American man. And now throughout the movie, both of our two lead characters have like dreams about stuff that don't actually happen, but is sort of tied to the plot of the movie. And so it's not out of the realm of possibility for this guy to have had a dream that the beast is rising. But then why? Why does this Native American man have a dream about that? Like it
now,
almost feels.
If our main character was good at his job, he might interview this man and try to figure out what's going on.
Also, I want to point out, because he shows up to the scene by himself with, like you said, a little handheld recorder. It's smaller than a bread box. And then later in the movie, they are looking for Sarah, the other key to this whole thing, and they go to her house, and then he's there with Daryl from The Office, and Daryl has got a big camera, bigger than a bread box. And so I was like, oh, this is like Zack Snyder's Man of Steel all over again, where like Lois Lane doesn't need a Jimmy Olsen. Like she can just do whatever. And then in Batman versus Superman, she has Jimmy Olsen, agent of the CIA, who is a cameraman. I'm like, but why? You didn't need him before. And now, like, now we've got this guy who is sometimes a cameraman who travels with this guy, and sometimes he's not. So I thought that was funny.
Yes. Oh my God. I have a question.
Yes, please. Yes.
Was Robert Forster paid by the step? Because I counted, he takes like 5 steps in this movie. He is either standing on his cue perfectly stationary, or sitting down, or someone is morphing into him standing perfectly still. Like, that's it. Like, I mean, it's okay. Obviously, you don't pay someone by the step. Like, obviously, it's like, okay, you have me for 2 days. I'm not memorizing any blocking beyond a step here or there. He takes 5 steps in this whole movie.
Well, and because we'll get to it later, but he's a shapeshifter, and like I am wondering, like, you know, they probably, like you said, had him for like 2 days, and like there's a couple of scenes. There's one scene.
Oh, Jesus Christ! I just remembered a scene. Sorry, continue.
No, go ahead.
There's a scene where he, you know, his stand-in beats people up. Like, if you can just shapeshift, why didn't you just shoot that scene better with someone who wasn't Robert Forster, and then at the end of the scene have him morph into Robert Forster?
That would have been what a good filmmaker would do. Yes, and I did take notes on that also. But yeah, I wonder, like, there's a part later where the doctor tells Ethan and Sarah, go that way. You gotta go. The hospital's getting attacked by a giant dragon. And then the doctor transforms into Robert Forster. And I wonder if it was just like, Robert Forster, literally just stand right there. We're gonna get a shot of you. And then later we will just CGI some guy to morph into you, and you won't even have to be standing in that hospital. Like, I don't know what the CGI capabilities were in 2007. If they were like, he was standing in front of a green screen and then they just threw him on there later, and then he didn't even have to be on set there. Because I didn't really pick up on that. I picked up on other aspects of that performance, but yeah, I am betting that like Robert Forster, and it's not that I don't know if Robert Forster was like, don't you know who I am? I'm Robert Forster, but maybe it was just like, if you have me for like a week, it is going to cost more. And so they were like, let's just get it done as quick as we can. And so that's why they didn't have him moving around a lot. Maybe, I don't know.
I have a theory that all of Robert Forster is a reshoot.
Oh, now that could be.
Because it's like he's always like in shots all by himself, or it's like one flashback scene with a kid. And it's like, we can do this one scene. It involves no other actors from this shoot. Like, you know what I mean? It's like the one scene where it's like he does sort of interact with anybody like within the shot. It's like that scene where his stand-in awkwardly beats people up, but it's like you never see his face, and it's like from like the back or whatever.
Yeah.
So that could be a reshoot. It's always like Jason Behr like turns his head, cut to like Robert Forster just standing there in a shot all by himself. Like, it's always that. And so I'm convinced that all of his stuff is like a reshoot, and it's like we can get Robert Forster, who was, you know, a journeyman character actor. We can get him. That's because it's like the stuff with Robert Forster is very different than the stuff with Chris Mulkey. The stuff with Chris Mulkey feels like it's in the movie that they shot.
Yeah. You're right. Like, and part of it is weird editing, but part of it, I think also, you're right. It is like it does feel like maybe they added stuff. That is, I will say that's entirely likely. Of course, I don't know a lot of the behind the scenes stuff, but I would say that that's possible. So in the flashback scene, we get a bunch of names and lingo all thrown at us in, I would say, very rapid order. And I mentioned earlier, this kind of, in a way, reminds me of Star Wars: A New Hope. Because with this movie, they tell us things like Imugi, the gift of Yuyi-Ju, Baraki, Haram, Bo-Chun, Lord Yun, the mark of the Red Dragon, Narin, Artok soldiers, the Grand Cave, and all this stuff, like, it's just one right after another. It's throwing us at you. And I think I told you, I don't remember if we were recording when I said this last time, but the first time I watched this movie, it did not have any subtitles at all.
Are you serious?
No. Yes, I am. Because there's, like I said, it's 16 minutes. And in 12 minutes of that, we are seeing people speaking a foreign language. I'm assuming it's Korean. And my DVD, I have an actual factory DVD of this movie, but it did not have subtitles of any of that. So this time around, I turned on subtitles so I could take notes of all of the lingo that has to do with the mythos of this movie. And this time, characters speaking in a foreign language, I was getting subtitles. Now, sometimes you would have a character in the scene, like Lord Yun talking to Master Baraki, and they would be talking, and Robert Forster would also be talking over them. And so I saw, just, this only happened once that I saw, where there was 2 layers of subtitles on top of each other. But yeah, I super weird, and I don't know if that's my DVD, the software on my computer that I use to watch the movie, where it's just like, unless you specifically ask for DVD or for subtitles, we're not doing it. Because normally, like, I'm thinking of a movie like The Dark Knight, like most of the movie won't have subtitles, but like when Bruce Wayne or when Batman is going to retrieve Lau overseas, like you'll have a couple, like some of the security guards are talking to each other, like what just happened? The power went off. What's going on? And there will be subtitles at the bottom of the screen. But when Bruce is talking to Lucius Fox in English, there won't be subtitles. I guess I was just naive to expect that like this movie would provide subtitles when characters are not speaking in English, but then when they are, it wouldn't. But like, yeah, so I had a level of understanding with this movie that I didn't have the last time because I chose to turn on subtitles. But I mentioned Star Wars, and like legend has it that earlier drafts of A New Hope, George Lucas mentioned things like the Journal of the Wills and Jedi Bendu and all of these weird words that he was inventing because he was really creating a world there. And some of his filmmaker friends, like Francis Ford Coppola and Steven Spielberg probably were like, you need to like kind of pare this down to like the bare essentials of the story you're wanting to tell. And so he even had like a couple of drafts in like stuff about like the old Republic that really didn't have anything to do with the immediate threat of rebellion, empire, Death Star, rebels steal the plans. Like all of that was the immediate conflict in A New Hope. But then George Lucas had stuff like, you know, about the old Republic that happened like before Luke was born. And his friends were saying, get all that out of this movie. And I feel like someone needed to tell the director of this movie, like, get all of this out of the movie. Like, all you really need is like the forces of good are battling the forces of evil. And whoever gets a hold of this girl will be able to shape the universe. And that took me less than 15 seconds to say, but they have a almost 20 minutes of flashback to deliver all of that to us.
Yes, and it really does only set up this girl is a MacGuffin. Bad guys want her. Get her away from the bad guys.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it is. And oh, sweet Lord, it was really funny when you had like, I think like twice in those first 20 minutes or like 30 minutes, like at some point it's like character will just say, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
What does any of that mean? Like it's, and then I laugh because that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
There are weird. Okay, we have not mentioned this because it's mentioned once and then never brought up again. But like, so Robert Forster and in this flashback, when a young Tom Welling, Ashton Kutcher man, he's remembering himself when he's a kid when he met Robert Forster, and Robert Forster explains that like, okay, you saw a magical scale in my antique shop, and it's like apparently like the reason. Oh sweet God, okay, so the reason Ashton Kutcher's remembering this flashback is because at this crash site there's like this big scale, like a snake scale or a dragon scale or whatever. There's like a big scale,
Yeah.
and he's like, this is what I saw when I was a little kid, when I was at Jack's antique shop. Jack is Robert Forster, who owns the antique shop. So he opened up a chest, saw this scale in there, got zapped with light, and then magically Robert Forster knew this happened 5 yards away. He's like, "Oh, you're the chosen one. I've been looking all over for you. Here's a info dump, and I'm telling you all this because this girl who was born 500 years ago in Korea, there was a man she fell in love with who was like her protector, and then her protector had a master who trained him. We are the reincarnation of those people, right? I'm the reincarnation of your master. You're the reincarnation of her protector. We got to find her."
Mm-hmm.
That is so convoluted and stupid. Like why even do that? Like, oh, okay. And then it's weird because Robert Forster's not even really in this movie. So like you'll have these weird scenes where it's like Tom Welling, Ashton Kutcher man, will like, I think his name's Ethan, because we're also ripping off Mission Impossible, I guess. So he'll have like, so you'll have like this scene where there will be like the evil general who looks like a Power Ranger villain,
Yeah.
And he like walks into the antique shop, and then it cuts.
Thank you. I wrote extensive notes on this. Yes.
What happened there?
Okay.
From that point on, Robert Forster's always showing up morphing. So did he die? And then like, oh my God, yeah, I have no idea what happened there. But you have notes, so go ahead.
Oh, okay. So well, yeah. So after we get that 16-minute flashback dump, then we're back in the present day. We have 3 scenes that happen in the span of 1 minute. I am not exaggerating. 60 seconds. So we start 22 minutes in. We see Sarah in her apartment because she was at the gym, and then she sees Ethan on TV talking about the Dragon meteor crash thing. She runs home, and are you okay? You there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, sorry, I thought I heard a beep. Sorry. She goes home, and she's got all of these like pages with Korean like words written down. Now I don't know where she got these or why she has them, because we know that Robert Forster explained Destiny and all of the plot stuff to Ethan when he was a kid. As far as I know, nobody has told Sarah what her.
Oh my God.
And
I
so
forgot all about that. Yeah.
Yeah, so she just has all these Korean words written down, and then she tapes them on the wall like a serial killer in a TV show or a movie. And then we get her in her apartment. She's looking through the pages, and then we hard cut to a laboratory where Science Woman tells Chris Mulkey and his partner that she says, what's the hardest substance on the planet? And they say it's a diamond. She says, well, this is kind of like that, except it's also organic. It reminds us of reptiles. And then hard cut again to Robert Forster floating in his antique shop. Then he like opens his eyes. He's like, huh? And then we see this guy walking outside. Now, I should point out in the flashbacks, I think we saw the bad guy, the big bad guy of the movie. But every bad guy was wearing identical armor and identical helmets. So at one point, I see a guy like roaring. He kind of sounds a little bit like Imhotep at certain times in the 1999 Mummy movie. And he's like roaring commands. And I'm like, oh, I guess he's the bad guy. But then in the present day, he's not wearing the Power Rangers mask. He's just like in a black cloak, and he looks like a Highlander villain. And then I just see him just walking down the street, and he turns and walks through a gate. All of that happens in 1 minute. And then and I have to, like I say, I assume that this is the bad guy because this is basically our introduction to him. And it's not even, it doesn't do like an establishing shot where we show a close up on his face and he's like looking at something, and then we cut away and he's like walking at a little bit of a distance. It's just the first time we see his face is, I guess you know more about film terminology than I do. I guess it's a wide shot where he's walking and he walks through the gate, and that's the first time we see his face. And other than that, his introduction was where he has a big helmet on, and so does every other bad guy in the movie. And so this is kind of the first time we see him, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
And then, so, well, he goes, I assume when he walks through that gate that he is about to enter into the Jack's pawn shop. But the next time we see Jack, he is saving Sarah from being accosted by some football players in the parking lot of a bar. And I'm like, okay, what happened here? And then the next, Ethan goes to Jack's pawn shop and meets the bad guy. And then the bad guy pulls out a flaming sword. And then Ethan wakes up from a dream. So I'm like, oh, okay. So like at first I'm thinking, I wonder if this scene was where Ethan sees the bad guy, if that was supposed to have been earlier in the movie, and like Ethan, like maybe Robert Forster senses the bad guy is coming and he's like, I'm weak, I can't fight him, so he runs out the front door while that guy walks in through the wall over in the back, and then Ethan comes looking for Jack and there's the bad guy. I was wondering if that was supposed to happen, and then they cut out like Robert Forster leaving, and then they just show, well, we have this footage, so why don't we have Ethan just have a dream? Because there's really no reason for Ethan to have a dream. There's no reason for Sarah to have a dream. These dreams do not impact the plot. So, but the editing is still super weird. Like when you have 3 different scenes in 3 distinct locations inside of 1 minute, it is weird. And I normally don't talk about like editing like that, but that's just boggles my mind. How
it is weird.
Okay, yeah.
And like there are scenes like that later on too, where it's like Ethan and Sarah are running away in the suburbs while a giant snake is trying to get them, and then it cuts to like 30 seconds of Chris Mulkey and his partner talking. Cut back downtown LA. All of a sudden, Ethan and Sarah have like a half a mile lead on the dragon. As it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Basically, because I feel like the editing room is like, okay, we need to like cut away so that there's some way that like they're not just teleporting downtown and are also having like a super long distance like head start from this monster. But going back to what you were saying, you're right. Okay, so the chronology is so here's what I thought was happening looking back on the movie. Bad guy phases into like Robert Forster's gate. Phases through the gate to go into Robert Forster's shop. Cut. He dies. Like somehow the bad guy kills Robert Forster, and now Robert Forster's just a spirit who like can shapeshift and help people, but not directly, right? Because I guess that's a part of the mythology now too. I don't know. I'm trying to give the movie something, right, to make it make sense.
Yeah.
But what breaks my brain though is Robert Forster not, in the guise of anyone else, just beats up 3 football players who are harassing Sarah, right? But also, like, Robert Forster's whole thing is, we gotta find Sarah. You gotta find Sarah. He finds her, and it doesn't do anything.
So
it's funny. So what that means is Robert Forster probably just walks around LA looking for men to beat up.
He didn't even know that was Sarah. He was just like, finally. I love it. No, you hit on something that Robert Forster can't directly help people because, and we're kind of going out of order. That's fine. Because there's one moment where Ethan is talking to Sarah in the hospital and a doctor says, go that way. And then they run away, and then the doctor transforms into Robert Forster. Now, I asked myself, why couldn't Robert Forster just say, Ethan, it's me, your friend, Jack, who we've known each other for 15 years. You go that way. Why did he have to morph into a doctor to say run away? And then even in the next 2 minutes, after they have gotten away from the hospital, they are attacked by the bad guy, and then some lady pulls up in a car, hits the bad guy, and then she says, get in. And then that's at night, and then we cut, the next time we see them, it's in the daytime, and then she says, you want me to drop you off here? And they're like, yeah, we'll be fine. And she says, you take care of her. And then when they leave, then we see her arm morph, and we don't even see the face that time. So it's like, oh, we didn't even have Robert Forster's face.
So you see the hand morph, and then it cuts to like the like little rear view mirror, and it's like you see like the side of her face turn into the side of Robert Forster's face.
Oh, okay, yeah. So my question was, why couldn't Robert Forster just say, hey, get in? Because if I am part of some big destiny thing and I've got a dragon chasing me across LA, now I know that this guy with the flaming sword is a bad guy, but then if some lady just hits him, because I don't think he even had the sword at that point. I think Daryl from The Office had the sword. And so some lady hits him with a car and says, get in. My first question is, hey, lady, thank you for saving our lives, but how did you know that he was a bad guy? And also, and then they get out of the car, and they've been driving for hours because it was night, and then it was day, and then Sarah says, what about your friend, Daryl from The Office? And he says, I'm sure he'll be fine.
I know, that's one of my favorite lines. And the funniest thing is, the next time you see Daryl from The Office, he's just back at the office.
Yeah.
He's not like, dude, what the hell, Ethan? You just left me on the side of the road with like this bad guy? Like, I could have died. He's just like, all right, Ethan, what's new? It's like video game logic. You know what I mean? It's like, I left this NPC, like I'm running away from this fight, and like I left this NPC ally, and now I go back into this town, and that person just comes up is like, all right, do we have any more missions to go on?
Yes. So
sorry, you touched on something else too, which is like so I'm so glad we have a lot to talk about Robert Forster because he's our Twin Peaks connection. Okay, I'm like, now I'm my theory is evolving. Now I'm thinking they had to do these reshoots because people are looking at this movie and saying, this does not make sense. Like, so you have like, I never watched Parks and Rec. Was that one like receptionist lady at the front desk? Was she in Parks and Rec?
Yes,
okay, so
she was Donna in Parks and Recreation. Yeah.
So you have Parks and Rec lady, and she's like, visiting hours are over. you cannot go and visit the visiting hours. Like unless you're family, you can't visit. You can't visit any of the patients. You can't do that. And so then you have like these people. I think they're trying to find Sarah. So like you have Sarah's like friend, like trying to like get in, and she can't get in, and then Ethan is like, hey, I'm part of the press, you should let me in. And then Donna is like, whatever. And then it's like he gets in, and then the doctor man is like, oh, hey, yeah, by all means, do this, do that, do that. And if I'm just like a movie watcher, I'm like, this is weird. Why is a receptionist being more restrictive than a doctor?
Right.
And then probably somebody came up with the idea of, I don't know, just make the doctor a shape-shifting Robert Forster to make him an ally. Like, that's the only thing I can think of. Now, like, we're fighting a bad guy. All of a sudden, some random lady hits the bad guy, says, get in, and they drive away. I'm a movie watcher. Who is that? And then someone said, well, then I got an idea. What if they're also a shape-shifting Robert Forster who's an ally? Now it makes sense, I guess.
Yeah. That's also possible. I would love to watch some more filmography from this filmmaker just to see like what is the like, and I'm not even joking when I say it. Like, what is the some storytellers are like, I've just got like a big picture. I just have this idea of what I want it to look like, and then the specifics don't really matter to that filmmaker. They'll just kind of figure that out later. And in some storytellers, they want like a hard and fast script, and they want to figure out all the specifics before they go in. And I really want to know like what is the process here? Like, did you start with some big visuals in your brain and then you just kind of made it up as you went along? Like, and how did you decide to do this and this and this? Like, I just really would love to know some of that.
All right, let's look at some of his other films. Okay. So one of my favorite things is to look at like the like obscure like studios that worked on a movie at the beginning of like really like, so there was like the first logo was like this 30-second production logo that looks like a Super Mario Brothers mystery box. I think and then it makes like noises like the Jackbox Games logo. And then afterwards there's like, it's like Young-U Films or Young-U, like, you know what I mean? Like there was that.
I think it's pronounced Yongary, which is there was a movie from like the 80s called Yongary, and it was like a Godzilla type movie, and then this guy made a remake of that called Yongary in like 99.
Oh, okay, yeah, because I'm looking at it right now. It's called, I mean, it's spelled like Young-U, so I'll say Yongary. Yongary and Princess Zuzu from 1993. It's 85 minutes, has a lot of half-star and one-star ratings on Letterboxd. But he also made Tyranno's Claw from 1994, which might be a Jurassic Park ripoff. So if you want to study this man's filmography, have at it.
Yeah.
Oh, no, there is Yongary. Yeah, no, that is from 99. That's a remake. And it has a lot of one-star reviews on Letterboxd. But there is this other movie he made called Young-U and Princess Zuzu. So there you go. I guess he made kaiju flicks.
Yeah, okay. Which, 12-year-old me would have been head over heels in love with this. Like I would have watched it once a day probably. But yeah, I'm trying to.
Well, hold on. Speaking of like related to this, you might need to. I'm actually like in real time looking this up, so you might need to edit this down.
No, that's good.
But I did.
Podcasting.
Isn't this magical, listener? Hold on.
You're on Letterboxd right now?
No, I'm trying to like look on Google, and my internet's really slow. Okay, here we go. Under the Wikipedia article for D-War, there is a sequel tab, and it says,
yes, I read this. Yes.
It is one paragraph, and it says, in March 2016, it was announced that a sequel entitled D-War 2 Mysteries of the Dragon would be co-financed with Japan's H&R Global Pictures. The film's release date is to be determined 2028.
Yes, it was announced in 2016 that they wanted, and then they say, well, it'll come out in 2028. This movie came out in 2007. So let's make a sequel and have it come out in 21 years after the original came out.
And 12 years after it was announced, which means this is going to be the Boyhood of Dragon Wars sequels.
Yeah. I saw that. I really hope that it happens. And
I thought I was dreaming when I read that. I was like, to be determined 2028? What?
Yeah. Oh, that was great. Yes, thank you for bringing that up because I don't think I would have remembered that. So yeah, let's see. I talked about Ethan having a dream. And then okay.
So while you're looking for something else to look at, I'm glad you brought up like she gets home from the gym. That was one of my big laugh out loud moments because it's like she walks into her house and it looks like a generic McMansion, right? Like It's LA, whatever. It looks like a JCPenney catalog. It's evenly lit. She's wearing like modern clothes, and she just like walks into her kitchen, opens up a drawer, and pulls out this like ancient like leather bound book that is like yellowed pages, maybe water damage, and she just starts casually flipping through it like, oh yeah, it's just like my ancient Korean history book that I just flipped through when I'm like distressed. I'm like, what?
Yeah. I also loved how you mentioned earlier that Donna from Parks and Rec says you can't visit her during non-visiting hours. So then her friend and then the friend's boyfriend go back home, and then he's like, hey, why don't we just kind of fool around a little bit? She's like, wouldn't you want someone to bring you clothes if you were in the hospital? And I'm thinking like, why? Like they've already got her in the gown. If I'm in the gown, I'm not getting back in those clothes. They've got an IV hooked into me. I don't want to have to wrestle with the IV bag. And no, you don't need to bring me clothes. But like, also like, she's not going to need them. She's probably not going to wake up for a few more hours. So like, but that whole, the text, the ancient text, I love that. I'll go ahead and tell you what I laughed out loud at. The last time, was when Robert Forster is explaining the story, and then he pulls up his sleeve and shows a scar on his arm, and in the flashback the old master got slashed on the arm, and incidentally then the old master is like sword fighting like 10 people, and then he just jumps and he like flies away, and so I'm getting like a Rise of Skywalker, they fly now, like but so before he flies away he gets slashed on the arm, and then Robert Forster says, I am that master from the story, and I laughed hard and loud at that because it's like, you were an Asian man and somehow now you are a white man. Like, and like you said, reincarnation, and like the boy and the girl I think are reincarnated. I don't know if Robert Forster is. I wonder if Robert Forster is just really, really old and decided I'm going to be a white guy now. And also, here's my question. So he says like, Ethan, it is your destiny to do something, sacrifice the girl to the good Imugi so that it can become a celestial dragon or whatever. But we know the last time this happened that instead of sacrificing her to the good Imugi, that they both decided to just jump off a cliff. And so Robert Forster even tells Ethan, hey, don't try to fight destiny. And Ethan's like, I'm going to do whatever I want. Get out of my face with this destiny stuff. And here's my question. Why can Robert Forster not just take matters into his own hands? Why does it have to be Ethan? And like you mentioned, maybe Robert Forster is not allowed to participate because he transforms into a doctor and gives him instructions, and then he transforms into a woman and gives him a car ride. And like, if the movie just had like a giant turtle in the sky talking to Robert Forster and the evil guy and said like, now listen here, boys, I don't mind if you have a conflict that destroys all of LA, but you're not allowed to get involved with Ethan and Sarah, okay, Robert Forster? You have to follow the rules. Now, if there was something like that, where the turtle, or some kind of ancient spirit is like outranks both of them, and then Robert Forster's like sneaking around breaking the rules, I would be okay with that. And it would also explain like why instead of Robert Forster having a antique shop, what if he said, I got a job as a janitor at the hospital and I'm always mopping the floor right over there where I can just look through the window at all the newborn babies, and when all the nurses are like at the desk listening to General Hospital, I'm going to go over and I'm going to peek at each one's shoulder, and there it is, like, because somehow all of this happens in LA. Robert Forster is in LA, so he somehow knows that the chosen one and the girl are both going to be in LA. So then why not
yeah.
why is he just hanging out in an antique shop? Like, and like that's just one of those things. Like I feel like this director probably just had this really cool idea of dragons and dinosaurs with machine guns on their backs, and destruction, and then like some people I guess have to do some stuff. We have to have characters, I suppose. And so like a lot of these questions that you and I are asking about, like just basic logic of the movie, I'm going to assume the director just really didn't care about that stuff. It's not that he didn't think of it, it's that he just didn't care that much. But yeah,
Maybe. Oh my God.
Him saying like I am that Asian man, that tickled my funny bone quite a bit.
That reminded me. That was like a Michael Scott like moment where it's like in Threat Level Midnight where it's like, you're probably wondering how I know so much about Michael Scott. And then it's like, Stanley is like doing the voiceover because he's the black guy. And then it like cuts to like Michael Scott, lip syncing like with the words like, that's probably because I am Michael Scott. Like that felt like it was that.
Yeah. So you already mentioned we've got like a pretty all-star cast, and I'm not saying that ironically because like I said, this feels like it could be a TV movie, but then you have actors I recognize like Jason Behr, and then you've got Robert Forster, you've got Daryl from The Office, and then you've got there was a TV show that the guy who did The Big Bang Theory did, Mike and Molly. The guy who's the zookeeper, that's Mike from Mike and Molly. And then you've got Donna from Parks and Rec, and Chris Mulkey. And then the lady who tells Chris Mulkey, this is as hard as diamond and we think it comes from a reptile. I was watching this the second time and I was like, she looks so familiar. So I looked her up. And there is a movie from the 90s called Lone Star, which is my favorite Western. And it's set in the present day, so I don't really know if it counts as a Western, but, people were wearing cowboy hats in it, so I'm going to say it's a Western. But she is a major character in that. And she's also the voice of Mirage from The Incredibles. And so I was like, oh, okay. Like she's only in like 2 scenes and she has like 3 lines of dialogue, but I was like, oh, I'm kind of happy to see her because I really like the movie Lone Star and she was in that. But yeah,
Okay.
I kind of thought it was funny how like I kept expecting to see like other actors that we recognize, like, like Will Wheaton, like working in a coffee shop or something like that. Like I kept expecting like, oh, it's another that guy. And we had a whole lot for a movie of this caliber, I feel like.
Yeah. I don't know if I would go all star. Like a lot of these kind of TV actors you're talking about were either kind of past their prime, or they were like not yet, like Daryl, like Craig Robinson, his like, kind of became more of like a prominent movie actor, and like his role got bigger in like The Office in like 2010-ish, after this. And I don't think Parks and Rec started yet, or if it had, like,
it like just started. Yeah.
And so and so you got like reliable character actors like Chris Mulkey and Mirage and whatnot. But yeah, no, like here's what I think. Like this was like a real movie in like Korea, right? Like this is like one of the real movies.
Yeah.
I cannot imagine being Park Chan-wook or Bong Joon-ho and being like, really? Like like I made Old Boy and this guy gets like this budget to like have all of this CGI in it, like for real? Like I'd be pissed.
Well, and that's that goes to the saying of like art from adversity. Like somebody, I'm interested in seeing somebody who has like $3. What can they do with that? And like The Hateful Eight, we both really like that movie, and that's basically just set in one cabin, right? Like we get some like flashbacks to stuff that happened outside the cabin, but it's basically just a bunch of people trapped in a room while it snows outside, and like it doesn't need a giant like CGI spectacle. And so like someone who has a lot of, I feel like sometimes, not necessarily always, sometimes the problem is when someone has a lot of money, then they put the cart before the horse, so to speak, and they get carried away with a lot of the big, explosions and stuff. And then like, I've never seen Old Boy, but I don't think that it has that much going on in terms of like big stuff. Like it's mostly a character piece, right?
Yeah. And it is like more action and grounded. But I know like Bong Joon-ho made like The Host, which is like a monster movie.
Yeah.
And he's probably like being more tasteful and like looking at like, the original Gojira and being like, okay, this is going to be kind of like a cool, like kind of more like the monster symbolizes something, and
Mm-hmm.
and it's like kind of more of like a creature, like unless like a dumb as rocks Roland Emmerich explodey thing. So it's like here's the other thing. It's like I have a hunch. It's like we can make an entire movie set in Korea in the past, 500 years ago. We can do that, or we can use that money, shoot in LA, and all of a sudden there's like kind of this like cross market appeal, so it can maybe play in United States where we will like, which is the biggest movie going market in the world, and even if it only makes like $5 million, like for a Korean movie that's really good, outside of Korea, and so you have stuff like that, and like the exchange rate, I'm not sure what it is in '07, but like you know what I mean, like I imagine a lot of the decisions to like get American actors shooting in LA, taking the mythology that's Korean, just kind of cynically applying it to like white people. Like I think it is just like an effort to like cynically make something that has as much crossover appeal as possible to just make a lot of money. Like I think it's all it is.
That could be, yeah.
Because on top of that, you have Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, the Star Wars prequels, like Roland Emmerich disaster movies, like all kinds of like what is popular right now. Okay, put it in a blender with monsters. Like because like those dinosaurs carrying like laser beams on their back look like Star Wars prequel aliens on Naboo. And
Yeah,
like
yeah.
the bad guy has like it's a sword, but it's like a hilt that fire comes out of it, and then a sword is there. So it's basically a lightsaber.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like it's got like all of these like Star Wars things, like the Dragon Realm at the end. We need to talk about that. What the hell is that? Like that's basically just Mordor from the Lord of the Rings. They're basically wearing like orc costumes, like armor. Like it's the Lord of the Rings. Like this is so cynical.
Yeah, and well, and you were saying Star Wars connections, like just the whole broad like Robert Forster is Obi-Wan Kenobi, and
Yes.
the bad guy is basically I mean, he wasn't formerly a good guy, but he's the evil Sith, the Sith who's leading the army. So he's like Darth Vader. And then like we got Luke and Leia. They're not, related, but he's the guy who's thrust in and like you have to go save the princess. And then especially that really lends credence to your idea that like they may have had an idea that Robert Forster gets killed and then he's interacting as a spirit later on because that's what happens to Obi-Wan Kenobi. And so, yeah, I was getting some hard Star Wars stuff. And you mentioned like Harry Potter, like with the birthmark thing and like the Chosen One, like, the Chosen One thing kind of plays a part in the Harry Potter stuff as it goes on. So, yeah, it does feel like that. And obviously, like, there's nothing new under the sun, but it would be nice if you could make the attempt to make it seem like there's something new under the sun, right?
Yes. No, you're right. Like remixing it and like taking old tropes and making it new, like that's just like what good movies are, like what good genre movies are too. Like uh I don't know, like you look at something like Parasite that Bong Joon-ho made, that feels so influenced by Alfred Hitchcock. Like there's a stretch of that movie which is just people stuck in a house where like they're in somebody else's house, the family comes home and they need to get out of the house without the family whose home it is knowing that they're there. Like it's a really intense, cool sequence that feels ripped right out of an Alfred Hitchcock movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, but it's not just strangers on a train mixed with Vertigo, mixed with Psycho. You know what I mean? Like, anyways, I looked it up. Apparently, at the time of its release, this was the highest budgeted South Korean film. It had a budget of $32 million, and it worldwide made $75 million. So,
Wow.
cha-ching, cha-ching.
Yeah. Um, so some fun notes. Mike from Mike and Molly, he is talking to the same cop that Sarah was talking to earlier. Because Sarah, she's accosted by the guys in the parking lot, and then she goes to the cops to say, hey, Robert Forster beat up those guys, and they don't believe her. And then later, it's the exact same cop talking to Mike from Mike and Molly. Now, I've never been to LA. I assume that there's more than one cop in LA. I assume if there's two different incidents, you would have two different cops dealing with those. So I thought that was really funny. So then Sarah has like a heart attack or something. She like puts her hand on her chest and it glows, and she calls the ambulance. And then they see what is very clearly it looks like a tattoo, right? But it's a birthmark. But we see it a couple times. It to me looks like a tattoo. But then the hospital sees it and they think, oh, that's a sign of an infection. So we are quarantining you. And like they have her locked up in the room and she's like she wakes up and she's knocking on the door like, hello, can anyone? And the security guard like hears her and then just like, I'm just gonna stay here. Like I'm not gonna like if she's like in there and it's like, what's going on? You don't have to walk in there. You can just say, ma'am, hi, I'm the security guard. The doctor will be here in just a second. And then you like the door's locked. She can't get out. So you don't need to stand there. And there's another guy right there who's like getting a gurney ready. You could say, you go get a doctor. Like, so that was weird. So they have to quarantine her. And that really doesn't like do anything for the plot because like 5 minutes later, that whole like they're able to escape the hospital. Like they just needed to keep Sarah there long enough for Ethan to get there. But since she had a heart attack or something, they could have just said like, hey, we're going to keep you under observation for 24 hours because we don't really know what's going on. You work out, you seem physically fit, you're young, like there's no reason you should be having a heart attack. And so they don't even need this weird pointless quarantine subplot where she's like like there's like 5 people surrounding her in the room and she's got like a lunch tray that she's like swinging at them. And then like later they moved her to a smaller room like when Ethan goes to talk to her. So that was funny.
That's I'm so glad you broke that down because I wouldn't have thought of that.
And so then Mike from Mike and Molly, he has apparently been committed to a mental institute. And he's saying like there was a really big snake. And I don't know why he keeps saying snake because to me, when I see that, I'm like, it's a dragon. Like, yes, a dragon is like a big snake, but I don't know why he wouldn't just say it's a dragon. But he says a really big snake through the elephant. And this woman says, look, as long as you keep insisting that there is a really big snake, I'm going to have to commit you here. But if you say that it doesn't exist, then I'll let you go. Now, I've never worked in a mental institution, but I think that if I told one of the patients, if you just say this, they'll let you go. I don't want to do that because what if he's not ready to leave? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, if he's here for a reason, I don't want to say, look, all you have to do is say these words and I'll let you get out of here. Like, no, wait, like you need to actually like, and of course we know he's not insane because we know the dragon is actually real. And that's another, like you said, that's the comic relief scene because as soon as he says it's not real, then the dragon is looking in through the window. Haha. But my question is, so she says the police say there was no sign of any big snake at the zoo. Okay, but there was a big sign that something threw the elephant from the elephant enclosure, right?
And there are giant teeth marks.
Yeah, it's covered in blood. And so like, even if there's no snake, you know that this guy didn't move the elephant. How would he do that? So that's another one where I was just like, hang on a second. And they're probably, like you said, like, they're just like, hey, we just need some comic relief here. And okay, but then A, get comic relief that's actually funny, and B, like, I don't know. I like things to make sense. I'm quirky. I already asked why Robert Forster can't just help them as Robert Forster. And then why they didn't ask about why the lady, like, hey, why'd you hit that guy with the car? Oh yeah, I think you mentioned this earlier. So there's a scene where Ethan and Sarah are walking on the beach and they're talking about, and she's still in her hospital gown, by the way. So if anybody was on that beach, they'd be like, because I'm pretty sure you're not like wearing clothes in a hospital gown, and they're just walking down the beach. Like anyone else is there, they'd be like, whoa, like, and he says then like, we should probably get you some clothes. But anyway, I just thought that was funny. But they're on the beach talking about Destiny. Then we cut to Chris Mulkey, and the Secretary of Defense comes in, and the lady from Lone Star's there. And then we cut back to the beach. And then I'm, again, thinking, like, this is a weird editing choice. Like, why couldn't we have the entire conversation between Ethan and Sarah and then have the scene with Chris Mulkey and the Secretary of Defense? Like, they had one scene that they just split in half, and then they put another scene in between it. And that's just another instance of, this is really weird. Why didn't you just have it all in one go?
Yeah, no, good call. I want to raise up an issue.
Okay. Yeah.
Which is good Imugi, you suck. Like, you really waited till the last possible second. It's like he didn't even bother coming to Earth. He was like, I know they gotta like sacrifice this woman, I guess, at like an altar in the dragon realm. I guess I can just wait. Like,
Yeah.
wow. Also, it's lame that like the good Amugi and the bad Amugi look identical, but one is white and one is black. Like,
Yeah, and
it's so
those
lame.
that scene where they are fighting, it's happening so fast. Like you get shots that are lasting like half a second, and when if you pause it, you can be like, okay, yeah, this one is a lighter color. But it's kind of like the Venom movie where you have Riot is like
Yes.
dark gray, and then Venom is black, and it's like, yeah, technically they're different colors, but
But
it's
it's like
still
it's also like overcast in Mordor. Like the color gets diffused. You know what I mean?
yeah. And then well, okay, so I do have some thoughts about the Gotomugi, but I'm going to get to that in a second because I want to talk about romance. I generally hate romantic subplots in movies because I feel like when you are relegating the romance to the subplot, that means that it has to take a backseat to the plot. And in this case, the plot is dragons and magic daggers and destiny. And all of that, it barely makes any sense. But then when you have the subplot has to take up less screen time than the plot, then it's going to make it just feels rushed. And that's what a lot of times when I'm watching a movie or TV show, I will say, okay, these two are kissing now. It just feels rushed. And that's because like if you watch a romantic comedy with like Hugh Grant and Sandra Bullock, the whole movie is the plot of these two getting together. And so they're spending the whole movie, they first meet each other and they don't like each other. And then they spend a movie with scenes where these two are interacting and they slowly come to like each other. And then by the end, when they start kissing and he goes to the wedding to say, hey, wait, I object or whatever. And then that you're all cheering and it's like, yes, but you've spent the whole movie watching these two grow closer and you have seen the chemistry in this movie. We start, I think it's about, they meet each other 37 minutes into the movie. 9 minutes later, they are kissing. And part of that time, that 9 minutes, is they are running. They're with Daryl from the office, and then they get attacked by the bad guy, and then they leave Daryl on the bridge, and then they go with the woman, and then we spend some of that time with Chris Mulkey and the Secretary of Defense. So really, we get to spend like 3 minutes with these two where they are just talking with each other, and then
I
suddenly
know.
they start kissing each other, and part of this you might say, well, it's destiny. Like in the previous lifetime, these two were lovers, so they're lovers
No,
now.
Destiny's stupid. I hate
It,
that as a plot device.
yeah, and I do too. And earlier in the movie, Ethan even said, like, get out of here with that destiny crap. Like, I don't want to listen to you, Robert Forster. So, and if you wanted to say, like, these two were lovers in a former lifetime and now they are both reincarnated into present day, you could do something really interesting with that. Like, let's say she is engaged to some guy and he's played by I don't know, the guy, Judy Greer's husband from Ant-Man and the Wasp, or Ant-Man. She's gonna be married to that guy, and then she meets Jason Behr, and they both have like this connection, right? And then at some point, Robert Forster says, "Oh yeah, you two totally boned 500 years ago," and then it's like now they both feel weird, and it's like, well, Jason Behr, he's engaged to Sarah Chalke from Scrubs, and she's engaged to that guy, and it's like, we don't want this relationship, but we both kind of feel it. And then you could actually explore that. Like maybe they're fighting destiny, but then maybe they realize in this life that they also have a lot in common with each other. You could have done something with that, but I want to see if they are going to fall in love. I want to see them actually fall in love, which is why I feel like if you wanted to do a movie where this guy, he loses his lover, she becomes like a dragon ghost, and like you could have had these two have known each other for years. You could have just cut the scene where Jason Behr meets Robert Forster when he's a kid and he doesn't know there's a woman with a dragon tattoo out there somewhere I need to find. He could just know her in real life. And then something happens, some kind of inciting incident. And then Robert Forster comes in and says, come with me if you want to live. And then he's explaining, like, you are the chosen one, lady. And then, like, they're both, like, you could see, like, a connection with him. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just
Yeah.
happens. Like, in one scene, suddenly they become love interests with each other. And it just feels rushed. Like, and I say that all the time. But I feel like this is one of the worst offenders that I've ever seen. And I keep coming back to Star Wars, and I feel like, and interrupt. Feel free to interrupt me if you have something to add. But the reason I feel like A New Hope works for me, it's not the laser swords and it's not the spaceships, but when you boil that movie down to like the bare essentials, that is a movie about a guy who is a young adult. He's ready to leave home. He feels invincible. He wants to take on the world. And then it's bigger than what he was ready for. And we've all been there, right? When I was 17, I felt invincible. And then it's like, oh, college is harder than I thought it would be. Oh, being a young professional is harder than it was being in college. And it's like, you always feel like it's like the world is just kicking you just when you're trying to get up. And it's like, well, that's kind of like what's going on with Luke. Like Luke thinks that he's ready to go out there. And then it's like, oh, my aunt and uncle are dead. And now like, my martial arts instructor is dead. And so like, that movie is about a young professional who thinks that he's ready for the world and he's not. And I mean, maybe I'm oversimplifying it, but that is the human element. This movie doesn't have a human element. And like, I know we've been having a good time, like making fun of it. And maybe that should be obvious that this movie doesn't have a human element. But I feel like if they had tried a little harder on making these human characters feel human, then I wouldn't have been making fun of a lot of the really goofy elements that this movie has. Like, the Robert Forster stuff and like, them leaving Daryl from the office dead on the side of the road. Like, I wouldn't be making fun of all that if these characters felt a little more real to me.
Yeah, certainly. I agree. I guess the one last thing I really want to like get in is the ending in Mordor is like, okay, so seeing all of like them shooting in downtown LA, I can only imagine like what it would be like be working in one of those like office buildings and just look out your window and you see these people in like Lord of the Rings outfits. And it's like, but then they don't have like all the CG like animals around them.
Yeah.
And they're like, what? Huh? Is this like a release the Snyder cut, like walk on Warner Brothers? What's going on? So, but then like what happens is they just get like, into a car accident and then they somehow they wake up and they're just like a different land. I've been calling it the Dragon Realm because it just seems to be like a completely different world. It's like, what is this? How did we get here? I don't know. The nonstop word vomit exposition did not prepare me for this. What is happening? And then like while we're there, Jason Behr has like this like magical like pendant that just when you stab it, it does what it needs to do. And so everyone just dies. And then and the funniest thing is they have like a Mordor castle there. And there's like an altar in front of the Mordor castle. And they have the lady in front of like on the altar. And then out from the Mordor castle comes the evil the bad Imugi. And it's like, that's funny to me because like the bad Imugi's like been doing his own dirty work, right? Like he has like these minions and he has like all these creatures that follow him and like do his bidding. And then it's like, it's not like a scary, cool reveal or anything because it's like, he's been doing his own dirty work, right? Like,
yeah,
it's just really funny that that's treated like some kind of a reveal. And the last time we saw him, like Daryl from The Office, he was like shot down from like the U.S. Bank building, and I thought it died.
Yeah.
Nope.
So I have several things here. So, well, before we get to the Dragon Realm, I know you're one, and I have some things about that too. So the Secretary of Defense, he is like, are you kidding me? We're the FBI. We can't be saying that there's an ancient legend about dragons. What do we have here? And then like 10 seconds later, Chris Mulkey says, we believe that the dragons are looking for Sarah. And then the Secretary of Defense like pulls him over with a sidebar and says like, hey, shoot to kill. Know what I mean? To quote, Eckhart from Batman, like, and so he like gives Chris Mulkey like a side mission of like kill this girl so that, and I was, of course, honestly, like Chris Mulkey like killing her and then that solves our problems for 500 years, probably the smartest thing that anyone in a movie tries to do.
Yes.
I know it's horrible and I know she's the good guy, but like, yeah, but I find it funny that the Secretary of Defense refuses to believe in dragons, but does believe that the dragons are looking for Sarah. And so we need to take care of her. And then Jason Behr, not only does he abandon Daryl in a dangerous situation once, but twice. Because there's the first time where he leaves him on the side of the bridge and gets in the car with the woman who's actually Robert Forster. But then later, the dragon like throws a car and they kind of hit it. And then Jason Behr and Sarah are able to get out. And then Daryl says, go on, go. Because at one point his head had hit an airbag. And then he says, go on. And that's the last we see of Daryl. And I just love that like two times he gets abandoned like that. There's a part where the dragon is climbing the bank and a cop sees it and he gets on his radio and says, we have a code 3. Now my dad, I told my dad this because I thought this was hilarious. I thought it was like, oh, they have a code for any time a dragon is climbing a building. But my dad said no, that's probably like he used to work in a prison, and he said that code 1 is like this is kind of bad, code 2 is like this is pretty bad, and code 3 is like this is a really bad situation. So it's like, oh, okay. But I like to think that the LAPD has a code for any time a dragon is climbing a building. I just think that's funny.
I also have another comment about the city or the U.S. Bank building sequence. Like,
yeah,
they're gonna get off on a helicopter, and then like the dragon catches the helicopter, and they're like, we gotta jump, and it's like, dude, that's like a 30-foot jump. Like, you're gonna die.
and I, the whole time I was watching that, I was like, oh, it's like Chris Evans in The Winter Soldier, where he grabs the helicopter. Yeah. So the funniest thing in the movie, my favorite scene in the whole movie. Are you ready for this? Yes. Chris Mulkey and his partner are in a car, and their plan is we're just gonna drive around LA and see if we can find Sarah. Now that's funny. But that actually works. They just happen to see her walking down the street and are like, come on, get in the car. And then like in the next scene, Chris Mulkey, but before they find her, okay, this is the thing that I actually laughed at. Chris Mulkey says something like, let's keep looking, we'll find. And then a dinosaur walks in front of them. And so Chris Mulkey's partner like swerves to miss. Then we cut back into the car. And Chris Mulkey and his partner are just like looking around, like, I wonder where she is. That's like they forgot to film a reaction to, whoa, we almost hit a dinosaur. Like, I know that by this point there have been, and he calls them something like Boltors or Boltons or something like that, the dinosaurs, but the bad guy. But yeah, so that was funny. But then when Chris Mulkey is about to shoot Sarah, he says something about how he says something about the paranormal branch of the FBI. Did you hear him say that? Or did I dream that?
That was
okay.
Weird.
So the whole time they have been like the Fox, like we're the X-Files branch or whatever, but we didn't know that. And then like the Secretary of Defense says, I don't believe in dragons. He should have said right then, sir, you're dealing with a paranormal branch. Like we have evidence of dragons, like right here since the beginning of the movie. But yeah, so that's really funny. Also, Jason Behr gets shot trying to, like, he jumps in the line of fire.
That is okay. Yeah, I have something to say about the scene, but continue.
Okay, he gets shot by Chris Mulkey, and then Chris Mulkey is about to shoot Sarah, and then Chris Mulkey's partner shoots Chris Mulkey, and he says, "Go on, get out of here." And then the movie just completely forgets that Jason got shot. The rest, and now there's only like 15 minutes left. But every like he's driving and then he's in the dragon realm, and then we never like at no point is he like grab his chest and pull his hand away and there's blood. So what do you have to say about that?
Okay, so that whole scene is they get into like Chris Mulkey and his partner. They like get into their car and they like drive him to like some like abandoned warehouse, and it's like, we're gonna shoot you. Mm-hmm. I've done my homework. He starts like explaining like I feel so bad. Like, I'm Chris Mulkey. I'm a veteran character actor. I've been in Twin Peaks. I've worked with David Lynch before, and I get this script and I'm reading it, and it's like, it says like Imugi and like, like sacrifice and, put this curse off for another 500 years, like stuff like that. I feel bad, but like, he basically has to be like, we got to put her down so that we can put off this, dragon invasion for another 500 years. And then, like you said, he tries shooting Sarah. Jason Behr jumps in the way, and then Chris Mulkey's partner ends up shooting Chris Mulkey. Chris Mulkey puts no effort into dying, and that's my favorite thing. Like, instead of just like falling over like a true champ, like a true professional, like as he's falling over, you can see him like kind of bend his knees to make sure that he can land softer, and it's really funny. I thought that was pretty good.
Also, Craig Robinson or Daryl from The Office, he gives Jason Behr a gun before this moment, and so Jason Behr has a gun.
Dude, I thought the same thing. Like
Chekhov's gun is literally, if you introduce a gun early in the movie, it needs to be fired later in the movie. Jason had to do was...
That's with Act 1 and Act 3. All right, this is all happening in Act 2. So this is now Behr's gun. That's a new new rule.
If you introduce a gun and then 15 minutes later it's not fired, then you have broken Behr's rule. Yeah, so you are calling it the Dragon Realm. I was thinking, like, yeah, it could be like another realm because it does look weird and dark. But also, I was thinking this could just be the Mojave Desert. Like, and I was like, maybe they just like drag these guys out into the like away from the city. And I was like, because they don't say "Welcome to the Dragon Realm." They like, and you know what I'm saying? Like, it very well could be another reality, and then Jason Bear just gets stranded there. But I was also thinking it could just be Earth, but there's a temple. You're right. There's a temple. So
There's a Mordor castle. I
yeah.
think it's
Okay.
And that's like they're on a green screen. Like, oh my god, yeah. So, okay, first of all, Sarah, like whatever reincarnation she might be, this soul is just cursed to only live exactly 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's either 20 years you're going to get eaten by like a dragon, or you're going to get eaten by a bad Amugi, and then die, and so that he can become an evil dragon and destroy the world or whatever. Or your blood spirit or whatever it is going to be taken by a good Amugi, and then I guess you got to go to heaven. But like, oh my god, that was hilarious where like she dies and then fades away, and then her spirit's like, I love you forever, bye.
and it's like, well, a lot of good that does me now. Like, I've still got a good 50 years left on this planet. Like, am I just supposed to?
I mean, hey, he could just walk up the spire and jump off the Mordor castle and go and be with her if he wants to. How is he supposed to get back to Earth? Like, that's the funniest thing ever.
I really hope so. They're making a sequel in 2028. I really hope that the sequel is set 500 years later, and it's going to be, now it's 2507, and then of course now it's all happening again, but this time she reincarnates on Earth, and then Robert Forster is like, rest in peace. It's going to be someone else who's playing Robert Forster's part. And then it's like, well, where's Jason? Where's Ethan? And then meanwhile, it's like Ethan is stuck in the Dragon Realm, and he's like got like a Luke Skywalker beard, but he hasn't aged like 500 years, and it's like he's messed up the reincarnation. Call me Hollywood. I've got the plans for your Dragon War 2. I'm ready. Let's do this.
I mean, comics get it. If you want, we can make plans now. Opening night, 2028. Let's do it, man.
I'm so ready for that movie. When I was Googling D Wars earlier today, and I saw it said Dragon Wars series, and I was like, oh, there's a series? But then I think it was just like a different, like something else. Like, they don't own the word Dragon Wars, because when I look up now it's showing D Wars, but then like, I wish I could find where it said, there's a role-playing game. That's what it was.
Oh, okay.
Got my hopes up and everything.
And that good Amugi sucks. And also the monster choreography fighting is not good. It's really repetitive. They can't do much because they're just snakes, basically.
Yeah. Well, and I know we're pushing our limit here, but the good Amugi later, it bit on the neck, and I think, oh, it dies. But then it transforms into what looks to be more of an Eastern type dragon, with like antlers and like several different legs. Why couldn't it have just looked like that the whole time? And then
because it took the Yim Ya Ju out of her. That was pretty good because like it died, or it was faking it, and then like Sarah gets the blood spirit out of her blood, and it's like this like magical orb, but then she can use the Force to control where it goes, and then she like throws it into the good Amugi's mouth, and then he turns into a dragon and then kills the bad Amugi.
You're right. That
I can't believe I made sense of that. I can't believe I said those words.
Yeah. So this movie is a mess. Connor, are you ever going to watch it again?
I could. If I get enough friends and enough alcohol, I think this could be a good time.
Yeah, I think I want to hoist this on my family and not give them a proper warning. Like I've given bits of hints here and there of how bad it is, but I kind of just want to like The Ring, like put it in the DVD player and be like, okay, bye, and then like walk out, like, and I'm crying as they start the movie. I think I do want to watch it again. As messy as it was. Do you have any revenge that you want to get on me for the next time we talk?
Oh, I remember when we talked about the Scorpion King 3, Battle for Redemption, I said, this is it. We found the worst. If I want to like let the air clear of that set for a while before I pick, some movies that I've had holstered up. However, I'm not going to do that yet.
Oh,
I know. October is just around the corner, and I thought I would pick a movie I had only heard about in the last week. It appears to be free on Amazon through something called Freevee.
okay.
So,
yeah, I've heard of this
mark of quality, I guess.
recently.
This is a 1988 film called Necromancer.
Okay.
It stars Elizabeth Kaitan, John Tyler, Rhonda Dorton. I've heard of none of these people. However, it has 2 Twin Peaks connections.
Okay.
They are listed next to each other. One is like the one higher build is Ed Wright, who
Okay.
plays the elderly bank teller on Twin Peaks,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
and Russ Tamblyn is below him.
Okay.
So I'm not expecting a lot of either of them. I'm expecting basically a cameo from Russ Tamblyn. But it is 1988's Necromancer.
Okay.
And it's on Amazon. You can watch with Freevee. So yeah, that's my pick.
Hey, we watched Django, and that had less Twin Peaks than probably anything else except maybe that first episode of 6 Feet Under. Yeah, I mean, it's probably got more than 6 Feet Under anyway.
What was the connection in 6 Feet Under? It was Francis Bay.
Mike from.
Oh,
Mike
that's
and Bonnie.
right. Yeah.
He came up and said, "Hey, I'd like to make a business proposition," and that was it.
That's right.
So
I
I'm
mean,
looking
anything
forward to.
more than Riptide, right? Francis Bay and
Yeah.
Riptide.
I'm looking forward to this. So we will talk about Necromancer in a couple of weeks, probably. In the meantime, I am the Comics Kid 2099.
I'm Connor Nielsen.
We'll see you guys in the future. Bye.